My dog is walking on two legs. I live alone in a secluded house in the mountainous region near Petropolis. It's a quiet place, surrounded by dense forest, perfect for anyone looking to escape the chaos of Rio de Janeiro on weekends and holidays. My only constant comparison is Barnaby. Barnaby is, or was, a 4-year-old golden retriever. 40 kilos of pure love with fluffy golden fur. He's the kind of dog that gets scared of his own farts and brings you a slipper when you get home, wagging his tail so hard his whole body wiggles along with it. It started 3 days ago, on a Tuesday night. It was pouring rain. One of those summer storms that knocks out the power and turns the dirt roads into mud pits. I was on the porch, smoking a cigarette and watching the rain, with Barnaby lying at my feet. Suddenly, he lifted his head. His ears went erect. The fur on his neck bristled. He was staring at the tree line where the forest begins. It's pitch black out there at night, but he saw something. Barnaby let out a low growl, not the playful growl he makes when we play tug-of-war. This was a guttural, vibrating sound that seemed to come from deep within his chest. It was fear. "What is it, boy?" I asked, putting out the cigarette. Barnaby didn't look at me. He was fixed on the darkness. And then, he did something he had never done before. He ran. He jumped the low porch, railing and bolted towards the forest, barking furiously. "Barnaby, no, get back here!" I screamed, but the thunder drowned out my voice. He vanished into the trees. I spent an hour calling his name. I grabbed my flashlight and raincoat, stepping a bit into the woods. Nothing. The rain washed away any scent or tracks. I went back inside, soaked and worried. Domestic dogs don't last long in the wild. There are snakes, cougars, and traps set by illegal poachers. I left the back door unlocked, put out a bowl of fresh food, and sat in the living room, waiting, listening to the rain on the roof. I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up at 3 a.m. to a sound, claws on the wooden floor. I jumped up. The back door was open. "Barnaby!" He was in the kitchen, standing over his water bowl, drinking, but in a strange way. He wasn't lapping up the water noisily like he always did. Instead, he had his snout submerged in the water, motionless, as if he was absorbing the liquid by osmosis. I sighed with relief. "You idiot." I walked over to him. "You scared me. Where'd you go?" He lifted his head. He was wet and covered in mud. There was a smell in his fur. Not the smell of a wet dog. It smelled like overturned earth and something rotting. Something sickly, sweet. "Gross, Barnaby. Did you roll in a carcass?" He didn't wag his tail. He just looked at me. Golden retrievers have brown, warm, expressive eyes, but Barnaby's eyes were opaque in that moment. There were a milky film over them, and he didn't blink. He stared at me for 10 whole seconds, without moving a muscle, without panting. "Come on, boy, bath tomorrow, bed now." I pointed to his bed in the corner of the room. He didn't move. "Bed," I ordered, more firmly. Barnaby turned his body, not in a fluid motion. It was a rigid movement. First the front paws, then the torso, then the back paws, like a tank maneuvering. He went to his bed and lay down, but he didn't curl up. He lay on his stomach, with all 4 legs stretched out and his head held high, staring at the wall. He must have been traumatized. I thought he saw some animal in the woods and got spooked. I locked the door and went to sleep. The next day, things got worse. The smell didn't come out with the bath, and I bathed him with flea shampoo, scrubbing him till my arms ached. But that smell seemed to emanate from beneath his skin, and the skin itself, while I was soaping him, I felt that it was loose. Dogs have loose skin on their necks, I know, but this was different. It felt like his skin was a suit one size too big for his body. When I pulled at his fur, the skin came away too easily, sliding over the muscles as if it weren't connected, and he was cold. Dogs have higher body temperature than humans. They are warm to the touch. Barnaby was freezing, like a slab of steak taken out of the fridge. "You must be sick," I murmured. "Hypothermia, maybe?" I tried to give him a treat. He loved the liver Biscoff. I placed the Biscoff in front of his nose. He sniffed it, or pretended to sniff it. Then he opened his mouth and let the Biscoff fall inside. He didn't chew. He just swallowed it whole, with a convulsive movement of his throat, like a snake swallowing an egg. I shivered all over. I spent the day working my home office. Barnaby stayed in the hallway. He didn't sleep. Every time I looked, he was there, sitting strangely, too upright, his spine perfectly straight, his front legs stiffly extended. He looked like an Egyptian statue, not a normal dog. And he was watching me. Whenever I turned my head quickly, he was staring. But as soon as our eyes met, he would look away at the floor, as if he were dissembling. That night, I called my ex-girlfriend, Clara, who is a vet. Clara, Barnaby is acting weird. He's cold, his skin is loose, he's not eating right, and he's looking at me funny. I said, worried. Did he vomit? Have diarrhea? She asked. No, he doesn't act like he used to. He seems like a robot. It must be PTSD if he ran into the woods. Maybe he'd eaten a poisonous toad. Bring him here tomorrow morning, she said. Okay, I'll bring him. Oh, and David. She hesitated. Lock him in the guest room tonight. In case he has rabies or some neurological condition, he might get aggressive. Barnaby? Aggressive? He's afraid of butterflies, Clara. Just for safety. I hung up. I looked at the hallway. Barnaby wasn't there anymore. Boy? I went into the living room. Nothing. Kitchen, nothing. Then I heard a noise coming from the guest room. The sound of little paws on the floor. But the rhythm was wrong. It didn't sound like 4 paws. It sounded like 2. Like human footsteps. I walked to the guest room door, which was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The room was dark, lit only by the moonlight coming through the window. Barnaby was there. He was standing, not resting on his hind legs to look out the window, not jumping. He was standing. His hind legs were straight, the knees locked backwards. His torso was upright. His front paws hung by his sides, limp, swaying slightly. He was facing away from me, looking into the wardrobe mirror, watching himself. He tilted his head to the left, then to the right. Then he tried to lift one of his front paws. The toes of his paw moved, not like dog paws, which are fused. The toes separated and stretched, making a gasping motion in the air. I heard a sound, a raspy whisper coming from his throat. My bladder let go. I felt warm urine run down my leg. I didn't scream. The terror was so absolute it stole my voice. I took a step back. The floorboard creaked. Barnaby's head turned, not his body, just his head. It rotated almost 180 degrees like an owl. It looked at me over his shoulder. The neck twisted, the loose skin like a wet rag. He smiled. Dogs seem to smile when they're panting. Tongue out. This wasn't that. The black lips pulled upwards, revealing all his teeth, including the molars way in the back. The mouth opened too wide, tearing slightly at the corners. There was no tongue, just a black hole in his throat. I slammed the door shut. I ran to my room and locked it. I pushed the dresser in front of it. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Yesterday's storm must have knocked out the tower's power again. I sat on the bed, clutching a baseball bat, shaking violently. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps, bipedal. They stopped in front of my bedroom door. I heard the sound of his breathing through the wood, a wet, bubbly sound, and then the doorknob turned, slowly. The metal knob creaked. It turned left, then right. He was trying to open it with his paws. Go away, I screamed. Get out of my house. The movement of the doorknob stopped. Silence. Then a voice. It wasn't my voice. It was a movie monster voice. It was a college of sounds. Sit. Stay. Good boy. Walk. He was repeating the words I said to him, but the intonation was wrong. The syllables were cut and pasted like a defective recorder. David. Biscuit. Dog. Open. I started to cry. You're not part of me. What did you do to him? Silence again. Then I heard a sound that broke my heart. The sound of Barnaby whining. That high-pitched little cry he made when he wandered into the room. It sounded so real. For a second, I thought, am I crazy? Is he hurt out there? And I locked him out, but then the whining changed. It dropped in pitch. It became deep. It turned into a laugh, a dry, human laugh coming from a dog's throat. He started throwing himself against the door. The door shook. The dresser slid a few inches. That animal weighed 40 kilos, but the force with which he hit felt like 100. The wood of the door began to crack. I looked at the window, second floor. If I jumped, I'd break my legs, but if I stayed, it could be worse. Suddenly, the sound stopped. The footsteps moved away, going down the stairs. I went to the window and peeked. Hiding behind the curtains, the front door of the house opened. The thing that used to be my dog walked out. It walked on two legs, but grotesquely, which on dogs bent backwards were forced to bend forwards, popping with every step. The golden torso shone under the moonlight. He walked to the middle of the lawn and stopped. He looked up at my window, knowing I was watching. He raised his right front paw and waved, a rigid human wave. Then he ran. He ran into the forest, but didn't run like a dog. He ran like a naked, deformed man, flailing his arms, disappearing into the darkness. I stayed awake until dawn. When the sun came up, I grabbed my car keys, the baseball bat, and went downstairs. The house smelled like rot. There were mud marks and viscous slime on my bedroom doorknob, the stair railing, the fridge. The fridge was open. All the raw meat was gone. The styrofoam trays were torn on the floor. He ate everything, including the plastic. I ran to the car. As I drove down the dirt road to get out of there, I saw something on the edge of the woods. I stopped the car. It was a collar. Barnaby's red collar. It was just lying on the ground near a bush. And next to the collar, the rest. I won't describe it in detail, but what I found there wasn't a whole dog. It was the inside part. As if someone had taken off a dog suit and left the inside behind. The skin was gone. The head was gone. Only the muscles, organs, and bones remained surgically clean. I vomited right there. I got in the car and drove to the city. I went straight to the police. I told them an edited version of the story. I said someone broke into my house, killed my dog, and threatened me. I didn't mention the dog walking on two legs. They would have institutionalized me. The police went out there. They filed a report. They found Barnaby's remains in the woods.
Probably a jaguar, the sergeant said, or some psychopath who will investigate.
I never went back to that house. I'm living in an apartment in downtown Rio on the 15th floor. I sold the house for half its value. I thought it was safe here, but last night I was in the elevator, going up alone. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor. The door opened. There was no one there. The hallway was empty. I was about to press the button to close the door when I heard it coming from the other end of the dark corridor, the sound of two paws on the floor. I looked closely, deep in the shadow. There was a silhouette. It wasn't a dog. It looked like a man. A tall, thin man wearing a long trench coat, but the way he was standing, the head tilted at an impossible angle, arms too long, reaching past his knees, he was facing away. The hallway light flickered. The figure turned around. I didn't see his face. He was wearing a hood or a hat, but I saw the feet. He wasn't wearing shoes. The feet were hairy, and they had black claws that clicked against the ceramic tiles. And as the elevator door started to close, I heard the voice. Not a bark, but my own voice, whispered, echoed through the empty hall.
Good boy.
The door closed. I'm locked in my apartment now. I push the fridge against the door. I hear them out there. It's not just one. It seems he taught others. They're scratching at the door, not at the bottom where a dog would scratch. They're scratching at the height of the people. They want to come in. I don't think they just want to bite me. I think Barnaby learned to walk on two legs because dog skin was too limiting. He wants something with thumbs. He wants something that can open doors. He wants my skin. If you have a dog and he runs into the woods at night, do not go after him. And if he comes back different, If he looks at you for too long, if he seems to understand what you're saying a little too well, lock the door and pray. Pray he hasn't learned how to turn the knob. The lady upstairs. After 36 years of living in an apartment complex, I can confidently attest that a night owl is the worst kind of neighbor. Being as lucky as I am, I had one of those moving into the apartment right above mine at the start of October. It was a lady who seemed to have an endless supply of worldly goods that all needed to be put into place the moment she moved in. Every single evening, at 9 p.m. exactly, she would start either hammering away, drilling the walls, or pushing furniture across her floor, always managing to reach the noise level of an angry bull in heat. I've always had quite sensitive ears, so I'm no stranger to being awake at night because of bothersome noises. There's always noise in the city, whether from drunkards singing at the top of their lungs or non-cultural critters running amok in the street. Trust me, the sheer number of times I've been woken up by an opossum knocking over a trash can outside my window is ridiculous. The last thing is, these disturbances would always be occasional and brief whenever they occurred. I could easily fall back asleep afterwards, but ever since the day that lady moved in, that night had been filled with constant sounds of her mayhem. The cacophony upstairs would go on every evening for about 3 to 4 days in a row. Then, at some point, I would hear a large thudding sound, indicating that she had brought out yet another box full of stuff that needed to be set up. This routine sent me into a hellish cycle of exhaustion. I would fall asleep late and wake up exhausted in the morning. I would then have to drown myself in coffee and go to work, hoping that I could get some sleep later in the evening. Don't tell me that I should have confronted her. I didn't want to see her think that I'm some crazy old man. Besides, I don't like confronting people. I have always felt awful whenever I had to reprimand someone. I also didn't know her name, which I felt like would have made the interaction even more unbearable. I sat on my couch, waiting for the commotion to stop. Suddenly, 3 weeks had passed, and she showed no signs of being finished unpacking. The seeds of chaos were planted as the clock struck 9 p.m. on an unusual hot evening late into October. An evening so hot that I had to have my window open to be comfortable. The lady upstairs started toiling away, following her usual schedule. It was just as loud as all the other days. I twisted and turned in my bed, trying to cover my ears with my pillow, as I had done so many nights before. But this night was different. The heat, mixed with my drowsiness, and the sound from upstairs, all compiled into a thundering migraine. I felt as if my brain were swelling, trying to crack my head open and run away to escape the noise. I couldn't take it any longer. I sat up in my bed, inhaled all the air that I could fit into my lungs, and yelled,
Quiet!
My yelling was followed by a large thud from upstairs. She had just started unpacking other boxes. I thought to myself, I couldn't believe it. She had to have heard me. My yelling was so loud they could probably hear me way up on the 5th floor. I stared at the ceiling, awaiting the sound of the troublemaker and her orchestra from hell. I waited, and then I waited some more. More time passed, but there were no more sounds coming from upstairs. Maybe she did hear me. Maybe she was finally being respectful. I felt my headache subside as I lie back down, letting my fatigue carry me towards slumber. I was completely unbothered for the first night in a long time. I rose with the sun several hours later, and I didn't have to chug half a liter of coffee to stay awake. I went to work with a smile on my face and a good feeling in my body. Everything was easier. I was happier. It was paradise compared to before. I came home that evening, hoping that the night before wasn't an exception. If only I had been that lucky. After the sun had gone down, there was activity in the upstairs apartment again. This time though, the sounds were a bit different. All I could hear was repeating over and over again. I couldn't place the sound. It didn't come from any tool that I knew of. I was sure of that. There were irregular pauses between the sounds, ranging from about 5 seconds to 10 seconds. It wasn't just heavy footsteps, that was for sure. The spaces between them were too big. It wasn't a hammer either. The sounds were too quiet for that. This thought process continued as I lay in my bed that night, my wary eyes fixed on the ceiling. Maybe she's tapping her foot on the floor to a song, but the sounds are not, rhythmical in the slightest. Maybe she's dropping a ball repeatedly, but why would she even do that? Is she a juggler? No, that'd be ridiculous. These were but some of the thoughts rushing through my head as the sound kept resonating in the background. It was beyond the midnight hours before I fell asleep that night. When I woke up in the morning, the noises had stopped. I assumed that she had just started working on her apartment again. Throughout the whole day at my work and when I got home, I silently prayed that I wouldn't hear those sounds from her apartment again, even though they were less noisy than normal. There was something about not being able to identify them which just made it so much more annoying. To my dismay, however, the noises had begun anew by the rising of the moon. Lying in my bed that night, I was gritting my teeth out of sheer annoyance. I covered my head with my pillow, but it was no use. I could still hear the sounds no matter how much I tried to keep them out. They made me feel as if someone was constantly poking at my brain, molding it like a piece of clay. Maybe it was revenge. Maybe just she was mad about my yelling and was doing this to get back at me. Maybe she just wanted to drive me nuts with her antics. I tried to fall asleep, but it wasn't happening. The sound from upstairs echoed in my head, much louder than any of the sounds that had ever been there in the weeks before. It was pure agony. My heart skipped a beat as my phone started ringing. I cautiously picked it up, wondering who was calling in the middle of the night.
Hello?
I mumbled.
Peterson, where the fuck are you, man? We've been waiting here for 45 minutes.
Oh, hello, sir. I'm sorry, but my shift doesn't start till,
I looked towards the window. The rays of sunlight had broken through and cast onto my floor.
Shit! Sorry, sir. I'll be there in 15 minutes.
I said as I got out of bed and hung up the phone. What followed was one of the worst days I've ever had in my life. I was a walking corpse with only one thing in my mind. What were those sounds? I eventually got home and I didn't care about relaxing. Relaxation wasn't even on my mind. All I wanted to do, and all I did, was await the sounds. I sat on my couch staring at the ceiling, and like clockwork, the commotion started back up into the evening. I couldn't take it another night. It was torture. I didn't care what she thought of me anymore. I didn't care about having to scold her. I stormed out the door and went upstairs and pounded on the door.
What is your fucking problem?
The sound stopped, but I wasn't satisfied. They were going to start again. I wasn't fooled. I turned the door handle and walked inside. Her apartment was cold like night and as silent as a library. I walked into the living room, and that's where I found her. She was lying on her back at the foot of a small stepladder. She lay beside the corner of a wooden table. The corner was covered in a mixture of dried brown blood and long black hairs. On the side of her head was a crater of blood, hair, skull fragments, and brain matter. Both of her arms were mangled to the bone. A swarm of flies were nesting on her body. The windows in the living room stood open, taking in an autumn breeze and wafting away the smell of rot that should have been here. As I stood there, taking it all in, I heard some skittering. I stared in disbelief as a chubby little form crept out from one of the moving crates on the floor, where it had likely been hiding from all the noise I made. It was an opossum. Currently unaware of my presence, it crawled over to the body and started gnarling at her hand. Every time the opossum ripped off a piece of flesh, the hand was lifted into the air before subsequently dropping to the floor, producing a light bump.